And welcome back. You are watching on TV. This morning we're very happy to be welcoming Chief Hugh Stevenson, the new police chief here in Sault Ste. Marie, into our studios. First of all, thanks for taking time. Brand new. I'm sure you're a little on the busy side these days.
Busy, but very glad to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time. We want to talk about your first impressions coming into this position. I know that you have some things that you're already working on. How does that happen? Is that something that you and the former chief sit down and talk about, these are the issues, or is that something that you do some research on and identify them yourself?
Well, I think the former administration was dealing with the same issues as I will deal with. And I take my direction from the Police Service Board Chair and Council and the Mayor. And in fairness, I did my homework on this community before I came. And my concern is, and it's a concern for chiefs across this province and country, is the influx of opioids into a community. And you know, we've talked about it for years about when it comes, it's here. And we have to understand that reality, and we have to work towards mitigating and disrupting the distribution system that brings opioids to a community.
What is it about opioids that scares us? Because people don't want to think it's in the backyard. They don't want to think their neighbor's son is using opiates. What are we so afraid of?
Opioids are a totally different class of drug in terms of the harm that they do to a community. And the best way to put it is, you know, we heard about opioids 3 or 4 years ago coming in the United States, and it was coming here, and it slowly progressed, but it's here now. And as a CACP representative in my previous role, I saw it being talked about in Vancouver and the deaths that they were incurring, you know, and they talk about it year to year and how all of a sudden deaths were doubling as a result of this cancer to the community. And it has progressed across this country. The reality is opioids have a draw. If you're a substance abuser and you get hooked on this stuff, in my view, you become the victim of this scourge, best way to put it. And we as a community have to pull together to stop its distribution. We have to look at who is funding this issue in a community. As you and I were talking before camera, opioids don't all of a sudden appear. They come out of organized crime and the distribution networks within it.
Now that scares people. When you say organized crime, first thing they do is, I don't want to hear about it.
Well, that's a good point. And the reality is, the more we talk about it, the more we open it up to the public, the more we have eyes and ears in this community about who's involved in this network and distribution, we can help those people that are victims. I've been very clear. I have excellent support from council, excellent support from the board chair and the mayor about dealing with this issue in the community. I don't say that opioids is a problem just for Sault Ste. Marie. It's across Northern Ontario. It's across the GTA. But we have to, and my role as chief is protect this community. And that's why, you know, in the last week and a half and 2 weeks, and I applaud the organization for jumping on board and saying we have to do something immediately. We're going to do it reasonably. So you've heard in various media interviews in terms of Project Heat, we started last week. We discussed this with the board. The board was very supportive of it. In my introduction to council, I talked about where we want to go as an organization. And this is one of the central features of where we want to go, and that is to disrupt and dismantle the opioid crisis across this region. And to do that, we have a number of different approaches. The first approach is Project Heat, high enforcement action teams. And what that means, it's not about going and harassing and bothering the abusers. We will get down into the street level, we will speak to them, we will make sure they're okay, we want information from them, and we are in the process of working with a variety of social service agencies in this community that can help these people get out of this cycle of substance abuse. We can't save everybody, but I will tell you one thing, the police in and of themselves cannot do it alone. This is a community response, and to do that we are working with a number of partners. after our first week, where we've had increased bicycle patrols, foot patrols, break and enter, crime suppression units, we're running a 3-to-3 shift where we have a greater exposure in the downtown core, and hopefully the community has seen that, and I look forward to their feedback as to what they're seeing, because their perception of safety is as important to me as the statistics.
Well, they're the ones who know.
Exactly.
Right.
And sometimes police leaders, we get into the role of just looking at data and assuming that data tells the story, when in fact, it's the people that tell us the story. If you're too scared to shop downtown because of what you see, then that's a problem for me, the police service, and this community to deal with.
Now, as a new chief, and I mean fairly new, it didn't take you very long to understand that you needed a higher presence in the downtown core. Was that just an instinct?
I wish I could say it was an instinct, but it wasn't.
Oh, go ahead and say it.
No, I'm not that intuitive, but what I do is I listen to people that talk to me. And it was very clear, even from my police service board discussions and from my discussions with the organization, from the previous chief, that we have a problem with this issue in the downtown core. And so I'm very fortunate, to be blunt, as a chief of police in this community, to have the support of the community to work towards cleaning up this issue. And so it wasn't on my own by any means. It certainly was, I think, a community collective to say, let's get together and deal with this issue. So within the first week, basically I think about 35 hours, we had 4 days this week, and we've seen, I think, probably 11 to 15 different increase of intelligence checks coming through. That's information that we need to know who is supplying the drugs to this community. So
getting a tip? Intelligence?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
People talking to us is the best way to put it. People are now opening up and willing to say yes. You know, the substance abusers, the
people who know the substance abusers?
People that are in this industry, unfortunately, as victims, are now speaking to us. And when we go up to these people, it's not about judging. It's not about
putting you in jail right
using
away.
the enforcement systems. No, it's about how can we help you get out of this cycle? Because I believe these people are victims. And my job is to get the intelligence flowing from the street up into our community. We need to talk about who's doing what in this community. This week we were fortunate to have a number of people investigated that are middle-level drug distributors. You can call them traffickers. We arrested one the other night. We took 50 grams of cocaine off the street in 35 hours. We took a firearm off the street this week. And that comes from a multivariate approach to it. It's not just the police. It's people talking to us now. And you know, the whole point of this discussion with you is to speak to the public and say, we need to know what's going on in the community.
This is your community, so you have to tell
This is
us
our
what's
community,
happening.
exactly. And what I want to see is the intelligence aspects. You can pick up the Crime Stoppers tip line. You can speak to our officers. They're members of this community. Their families are members of this community. And get that information. You asked me about organized crime. And I'll tell you, and the community needs to understand this, opioids do not grow in our backyards. They're not mom and pop operations. What they are is people making considerable money by allowing the distribution to come here. They skim, they make a lot of money. Some look the other way, right? Because it makes a lot of money and they're unknown. My goal is to expose who's making money from this distribution. And when you see people that are in victimized roles, like substance abusers, they're in a role where they have a constant market. The people supplying this, it's a constant market, and they can't get out of that circuit. So as much as I want to support that crew at the bottom, I want to take out the middle people that are distributing it, but more importantly, I want to stop the people that are funding it to come to this community.
Good for you. You know what? It's not like we're talking about a guy who has a pot plant he's growing in the basement. No. We're talking much bigger. I could chat with you about this for days, and I appreciate you taking the time out. And I hope you come back and see us.
I absolutely want to come back to see it.
I'd like to get some updates as you travel through your journey here in Sault Ste. Marie. We're awfully pleased to have you as our
Thank you
chief.
so much, and I'm proud to be here, and I look forward to this challenge and this community approach to resolving this issue.
Appreciate it. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks so much.
We'll be back on TV.